is Sara Nasserzadeh. I'm an accredited member of the British Association for Sex and Relationship Therapy, and I'm a chairperson for the Middle Eastern Sexual Health Committee at the World Association for Sexual Health, and I'm a certified member, certified sex therapist by the American Association for Sexuality Educators, Counselors, and Therapists. When we're talking about global perspectives on sexuality, I have to say, again, based off my experience when I, travel around the world, I can give you some really, they're not strictly caught, you have to understand that, but on the other hand, there are some specific areas that I can generalize, I think. The first part is in the Middle East, the whole culture is so sexualized, the literature and the whole talking to each other, women to women, men to men, they make lots of jokes and all that. But as soon as it comes to problematizing the sexual life, people go just silent. This is not something to be discussed. So they go to the doctor probably, at most. In Asian countries, South Asian countries, they're more conservative, I would say. Like, there is not a chance for you to joke around sex or use the sexual words. There are not as many sexualized words, if you like, in those cultures, even in the terminology that they have. So that is the difference, between those two cultures. One of the similarities that you can find among Middle Eastern, South Asian, and Asian cultures is that actually sexuality is a part of the person's life. It comes naturally. So nobody tells them to suppress them forever, like, for example, in some of the most religious, in some of the more religious Christian-based countries or cultures. So they come to know their sexuality after marriage, but it is a part of the social life of a human being. So you are expected to be sexual, but it is after marriage. But when you come to Western European countries and Northern American countries, it's mostly, you can't joke about sexuality. As far as you medicalize it, you problematize it, you speak about it scientifically, or on the other hand, put it on the Hollywood movies, make it pleasurable and sassy, then it should be okay. But in everyday life, really, you don't sit with your girlfriends or boyfriends, just joke about sex or talk about sex all the time. So this is, and also sex is a separate phenomenon. It could have nothing to do with your social life. You can just be, have sex, one stands and all that. It's your sexual part. And then you can have a totally separate social life for yourself as well. So it's not something that is quite supported by your social network. The good thing about being a clinician or practitioner in big cities like London or New York is that you don't necessarily see people from that specific city, but you get to see people from all around the world. And to add another plus to London, because it's close to many, many places, like other European countries or Middle East or Southern Asia, I used to get some clients flying from Israel or France, different European countries, as well as Middle Eastern countries or, Israel, just to, for a short, intense therapy for a specific sexual dysfunction. Most of the cases that I saw were related to vaginismus, which is the involuntary contraction of the vaginal entrance, so that the penetration actually is not possible, the intercourse. So at the point that I used to see those couples, most of them would come to me based from very, very religious backgrounds, and they just came to me to get pregnant. And for some of them, I would just ask them, is it important to you to have a sex life, or are you just here, to have sex to get pregnant? If it's the second choice that you're making, no sex life but the baby, so don't waste your money on me. Go and, just do it yourself, like with a turkey baster or something, or even to go to a gynecologist. Just ask them to do the insemination for you. And it was very interesting, but I had 3 couples who chose to do that rather than going through the whole, sex therapy and getting close to each other and all that. And that's perfectly okay, because it really depends on the dynamic of the relationship. And when we are getting trained as therapists, it's the most important thing for us is the goal that the client wants to achieve. Because I might go there with lots of perceptions and expectations and want to impose it on my clients. That's not how it works. They come to you with a specific agenda. You might give them information, and based on that, they might change their goals in their minds. But it doesn't happen all the time because they have their own dynamic of the relationship and the whole playing thing going on, you know, give and take between the couple and the whole social circle around them, in-laws and the social capital that they have and all that. So it's quite different. I actually had a radio and online program for BBC World Service. It went on for 1 year before I moved to New York. And it actually won an award for Innovation of the Year, 2007, which was really the icing of the cake. And the main questions that I used to get, because it was for the Farsi-speaking audience globally, were very interesting, actually, because you could get some questions from military camp in Afghanistan. I actually had a gentleman coming to buy a bread or something, and they called us, oh, hi, I'm in the city for 2 hours. I have this question. Could you please ask Dr. Sara? And it was just so touching that they could just have this source to just, you know, reach out and, you know, ask their questions. But the neighboring country, Iran, the questions that you would get from them would be quite different. For example, from Afghanistan, even from Kabul, you know, the main city, you would get questions that made you realize how close, you know, the culture is, how conservative still the culture is, even after Taliban. But then this, you know, the neighboring country, Iran, you got all these questions about, you know, different fetish, different fantasies, and it could be really interesting contrast, or from Tajikistan, or from the same people, Afghani or Iranian population outside the country. So for example, oh, I'm calling from the Netherlands, and the question could be quite different because of the whole socio-cultural aspect of it. And but unfortunately, it got, you know, the BBC website got censored in Iran because of the political reason. And so we couldn't reach to the population that we had, you know, the audience that we had through written material. So what I came up with was to put them all into the email format, ask people for their emails, and then email them out. So as PDF files, and they were actually very kind at BBC to let me do that because of the copyright issues and all that. But you know, the main purpose of that was to educate people who couldn't be educated otherwise, this openly. You know, talking about masturbation, homosexuality, nothing was off limit. Initially, all the people from Afghanistan, Iran, you know, all these countries were men. 99% were men. Over time, I don't know whether because I was a woman, what gave them the encouragement, but more and more we saw women calling, writing to us, emailing us and all that, which was an interesting achievement. But the questions, for example, mostly from Afghanistan, from what I can remember, were mostly about relationship, getting married, the first timers. So I'm getting married, what should I do? I'm so scared. Or inhibited ejaculation for men, as I can remember. And many, many questions about size of the penis. Am I normal? Am I not normal? Which is really interesting because if you compare it with scientific literature, this is top of the range of the questions that men post to the websites and all this, you know, about the size and also rapid ejaculation. These are top of the game for the questions. With all due respect to my colleagues who are working in this field, especially Dr. Helen Fisher, whom I respect deeply, I personally don't believe in sexual chemistry. I believe in sexual harmony and balance. And I'll tell you what my, you know, idea about it is. The way you describe it, if I told somebody that I have sexual chemistry with you, it seems to me, to my visual, you know, mind, seems as if, oh, I have a sexual chemistry with this person, click. And this will be like this forever. That's not going to happen. Because I'm a person, the other person hopefully is a human being too. So we evolve over time. the emotions evolve over time. Even different phases of time that we have, like, for example, menopause and all that, we really change, and men as well. So if I believe in chemistry, then I say, oh, we've been unhooked, so I'm going to hook with somebody else. But if I think of it as a harmony, then it seems as if I send you energy, you send me back the energy. So it's a constant evolving process. That's what I believe in, and what I work with my couples with, with this concept rather than the chemistry. I don't believe in it. When we talk about sexual interaction, there are huge debates around it, I have to say. And these days we have two huge debates. So if I can just put it this way for the sake of simplicity. One is the one which says that, oh, men are emotionless, so they can have sex with whoever they want with no strings attached and be happy with themselves. And the other ones say that, and the same debate says that women need the emotional attachment and all that. On the other hand, other people say that, no, if men are like that, women are like that too. So women don't need emotional bonds either. I personally believe that you have to look at the individual and the socio-cultural context that they live in. So although there are some, certain scientific studies about physiological differences that could happen, and, the hormones that could be produced based on sexual activity that could differ between men and women, therefore that could impact the person differently. But on the clinical side of that, I wouldn't go to see my clients based on that perception that, men and women are quite different. And especially more and more, I see, in urban areas, like I work in London and New York and, big cities, more and more men who, at least that I see, they come to me to seek advice on how become more emotional, become emotionally in touch with themselves and their partners. So I really don't see that much of difference based on the gender, based on my personal experiences rather than individual differences. For women who wait until marriage, I personally have conflict views. The reason is, there are many people out there that, they are virgin based on the culture, and they get married, they live happily ever after, if you like. So it is not a big deal for them. But for the segment of the society that I see, basically, I will have a biased view because they come to me because of the problem, right? The only thing that I can say is, if when I lecture to parents and, schools, I always say that it's quite respectful, what you're doing. It's good, just tell your children about the values that you have. So, for example, you tell your daughter, please, don't have sex, and this is not in our culture until you get married. This is fair enough. But promise them of a good, sexual life, and emphasize on the values, why they are postponing it, rather than just connecting it with guilt, with shame, with horror stories, or you're going to bleed to death, or it's going to be so painful, don't ever let anybody touch you. And I actually have clients, when they come to me, I say that, look, you have to understand, it's not as if your virginity, your hymen, was your dignity for 20-something years before you get married. And then if they get married by 20-something. And all of a sudden, by signing the marriage contract, oh, honey, I'm ready. That's not going to happen. It's really deep inside the subconscious. So the partner has to really understand in these situations that, a girl's dignity, when it's tied to the hymen, they're not going to just give it away. So it takes trust, it takes just letting go, and a whole new attitude towards sexuality. If I want to define love, I first of all encourage everybody to go and read, well, even if they don't speak different languages, they go and see how it is, what is the terminology in different languages and different cultures for love. This could actually give a very good insight to people as how different people define love. The other thing is, I was reading a book by Stephen Covey, I think, that he very nicely put it this way, that love is a verb. And I always say love is a verb. When I say I love you, I'm out of love with you, I'm in love with you, such a language I use is quite irresponsible. It's as if it can come and go without my knowledge. But if I say I choose to love you, it's a verb. I'm going to make myself to love you. And if we think about arranged marriages in, for example, Indian cultures, because you are supposed to love your spouse, you will eventually end up loving your spouse. So it's really the whole world perspective rather than what we've been told about love, mostly from Hollywood.